to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
I'm me, I'm Rob. Let's get the show on the road about these rumors, because Drew is on the road.
I am on the road. Actually, I'm at the lake house right now. See if you can still see the lake house. It's getting... Oop, my head's in the way. My head's in the way.
I was going to say that it's...
There we go. There's a lake behind me.
So the backdrop that you got going on, it's very nice, guy.
Not a green screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, by the way, we should give everybody an update, too. If you're watching on Twitter, usually, I had heard a rumor, and I guess we can now validate it, that Twitter has blocked people officially today from live streaming that don't pay for their premium service because it did not go through. So, yeah, Twitter apparently not getting some goofball love tonight. So, we'll have to work on that, getting that up and going. I had heard that as a rumor, but rumor has it that has happened. A little cheesy on them. So Elon Musk must have not been making money in those crappy Cybertrucks or something.
Yeah.
Schmuck.
Those things are amazing.
I'm not an Elon Musk fan. Not a fan. But yeah, so here I am traveling here with the family at the family lake house here, but we're still got an episode going. As always, we don't care what's going on. We put a live episode up. Doesn't matter what's going on. I could be, having, a vacation in Amish land. I would find a way. I get a backup generator with wind-powered turbines. We'd find a way to get
you would have going. 17 Amish kids on just a tills, just constantly rotating.
Like hamsters on wheels, damn it. So let's get right into it here, guys. We got a lot of Giants news to go over there with you guys. It's crazy. This is the downtime of the year, but people keep just talking all kinds of crazy stuff, and got to go over it because it's just insane, some of the comments out there lately. So we start off with a former Giant, the greatest running back to ever wear a Giants uniform, Tiki Barber, worrying about Daniel Jones. So obviously he's a member of the media now and has been for some times. He said, I saw Daniel a couple weeks ago. He looks great. Big, strong, strapping, running around, always working out. He looked good, but he looked good in no pads. But looking good in no pads is different than being on the football field and being aggressively pursued by defenders. I hope he's ready, but in my mind, I can't help but think he might not be. So that's it's
strong words from Tiki, but it's not groundbreaking.
It's all speculation.
Yeah.
My biggest issue I have with it is, can we not say big, strong, strapping? Like, that's just...
Sounds like the start of something else.
Something the Haktua girl will get involved with. That's what it sounds like to me. But yeah, listen, guys.
TJ, all you got to do is spit on that thing.
We all know Daniel Jones is no lock and guaranteed to be week one starter. I used the word lock on purpose because we got Drew Lock. He's the backup quarterback. He's got starting experience. Yes, I did that. He's got starting experience. He's a guy that you can count on to come in and start for a few games if need be at that point. So I'm not worried about that. I don't think Drew Lock is going to light the world on fire. Don't get me wrong. But we're also going against potentially back-to-back rookie quarterbacks to start the year. And if Minnesota doesn't start the rookie, they're going to start Sam Darnold. We all know what Sam Darnold is here, that have been New York area fans for a while. Obviously, he spent his years in the Jets there. And yes, obviously, most players get better when they leave the Jets. But Sam Darnold has not. He failed in Carolina. He went to San Francisco with a lot of hype, did nothing, and then now goes to Minnesota to be basically the insurance policy for J.J. McCarthy. That's what he is. Let's be honest. Minnesota wants J.J. McCarthy to be the starter. So
why would you move your draft around to get JJ? Yeah, that's kind of what you do there.
There we go. I'm back here. I'm on the lake internet here, so
I PTSD. I thought I was the one that's lagging here.
Let's get into the next comments here, which is somebody who wasn't a great Giant, but he was a great Jet, I guess. You want to say a great Jet? He was a great Bengal, that's for sure. And that's Boomer Esiason. Boomer Esiason basically saying that the Giants are stuck with Daniel Jones. That's what he said, stuck with Daniel Jones. He said the moment that Joe Shane goes over to New England and says what he says, and the moment they're interviewing quarterbacks, they're not really talking about Daniel Jones, but they really are talking about Daniel Jones. Boomer said that on the WFAN Sports Radio. He says, because they don't know what to expect from Daniel Jones. Now, that part we already know is true. Like Joe Shane's already said, you have to have insurance policy. We don't know if he's going to be ready to play or not. That's been very clear from the very get-go. I don't know why that would be considered breaking news there. But why is he bringing it up now? Like, we already know it's Boomer. We already know that he's potentially not here long-term. We already know he's potentially, not going to be fully healthy this season. We already know these things. Like, you're just stating the obvious for some reason, But this is where it gets bad. He goes, you look at the injuries. You then take what Joe Buck said during one of the games when Brian Daboll was lamenting to Joe Buck that he has to be the energy and needs his quarterback to be the energy. And then you take what Rich Eisen said about the Giants being done with Daniel Jones, essentially. They're stuck with Daniel Jones. As I'm sitting here this morning, that's how I look at it. I think stuck is a really...
It's a harsh term of how to phrase it. That's like kindergarten terms of saying what's going on right here. It's not that there's
and not like kindergarten cop terms. Like it's not like that. Like it is not.
Who's your daddy? Who is Daniel Jones and what does he do?
But it's like we all know that Daniel Jones is not who Joe Shane and Brian Daboll want as quarterback. Most likely, let's be honest. Like they signed him because they didn't have other options. Now they don't have another option that's better than him again. So, I look at it, and I don't want to say they're stuck with him. He's just the best option available to them for right now. I mean, you could, if you want to say it that way, then you can say that about 90% of the teams out there. Okay, fine. Baltimore stuck with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a little better to be stuck with Lamar Jackson.
No, I don't disagree, but I'm just saying. And
I don't know what you're saying.
I know what I will say this. Maybe I don't disagree because Lamar Jackson sucks in the playoffs, and Daniel Jones is one-on-one. Just saying.
I mean, I guess you're not wrong there, and he's a lot cheaper.
I'm trying to give a positive, damn it. I'm trying to give a positive.
He's a lot cheaper.
He also gets in every year, but
Yeah.
Just saying. So, but again, I don't get why bring it up and say stuck like it's a negative thing. Like, is he the ideal quarterback? No. But I still think there's situations that are worse in this league. I really do. So, we talked about Minnesota in the last segment. That's a bad scenario. You got a rookie quarterback whose best move was handing the ball to the running back. And you got a guy who literally has not been able to succeed now at 3 different places. That's not a good scenario. You got Arizona, whose quarterback prefers playing Call of Duty than working out. To the point where they had to write into his contract. There's a lot worse scenarios to be had, guys. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is the answer. I just, again, we try to be the level-headed people here. He's a middle quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. He's not a horrible quarterback.
Going down the line, we were talking about before being stuck. We talked about this quarterback, 2 weeks ago. Mr. Maybe he's made with it. Maybe it's Rathleen, Mr. Lawrence himself, Trevor.
Yeah.
They just paid down in Jacksonville. They just paid him $2. Oh, Christopher, appreciate it.
Yeah, subscribe, damn it, he says.
Yeah. But they just paid him a lot of money. Is it fair to say that Jacksonville stuck with Trevor Lawrence?
You know what? They are now.
They are, but
they are now.
But
they seem to want to have been stuck with him. That's the thing.
Yeah, but
and that's why I'm saying stuck is a hard term because you're stuck with every quarterback on a big contract.
Yeah, and in hindsight now, DJ was paid a lot for the time, but it's not that big of a contract these days anymore.
No, not especially when you compare it to Dexter Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence, wrong Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence to the contract. There, such similar numbers, such a huge contract comparatively, and it's an albatross of a contract. I think they're going to realize that in a couple of years once they start seeing issues with the way he plays for what they're paying him. It's just out of whack. It really is. So,
yeah.
All right, let's get into the next pick. Let's get some positive news on Daniel Jones.
Ooh,
Ooh, positive with Daniel Jones?
positive giant goofballs. Nothing
Believe
I'd like to hear more.
So, Daniel Jones is named a surprise fantasy pick there. Now, Rob, I know this is your category. You know me. I don't not really much of a fantasy person. But anytime I get positive news on Daniel Jones, I want to share it because it's like there's not a lot of positive out there. People mostly talk negative. So let's get a little positive going. So this is right from PFF. They said Daniel Jones finished as QB9 in 2022, in large part thanks to his rushing abilities. His 708 yards ranked fifth at the position, while his seventh rushing touchdowns tied for third. He recorded a below-average big-time throw rate and above-average turnover-worthy throw rate, but his volume in the running and passing game was enough to vault him into the top 10. Daniel Jones did not get off to a strong start in 2023 before dealing with injuries that decimated the rest of his season. There is reason to believe Jones could match his 2022 fantasy production this season. The wide receivers he'll have at his disposal are much better than they were at the start of last season. Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, and Isaiah Hodgins were the three primary wide receivers when Jones was healthy last season. This year, Jones has Malik Neighbors as his new lead wide receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson is healthy and should be his second best option. Jalen Hyatt hadn't earned much playing time while Jones was healthy last year, but he should also be part of the mix. And
yes,
it's an interesting combo they gave there. But go for it, Rob. You're the fantasy guy.
So, I mean, if you're a fantasy football player, like everyone knows, you got your top five quarterbacks. I mean, you obviously go Mahomes, hands down. But when you're in a 10, 12, 14-man league, like DJ is not a bad pick. And like he could sit there and surprise you. Is he going to be like your number one pick overall? No. Is he going to be like your fifth round pick? Probably not. But like if you're laying around, you got some good receivers and some good, running back play over here. DJ's not a bad pickup because you probably didn't get yourself the Mahomes or you didn't get yourself Herberts or whoever is going to be your top five this year. But DJ, yeah, especially if you're in a PPR when he does with all the running, I wouldn't see him doing much running in the first half of the year.
He'll be catching ball much. Just that one catch he had in 22.
Yeah, well, I'm saying when you do PPRs, points per reception, or points per play, pretty much. So when you run the ball, you usually get a point on it. So when he runs 10 times a game, 5 times a game, that's an extra 5-10 points a game. Plus the yards he puts on there counts as a running back. Plus your passing yards.
I never played in that kind of thing. I played PPR with just the catch. So yeah, the rushing ones, yeah, definitely. But I think that I think he's not going to run the ball as much as 22. I do think they're overlooking the fact that with the coming back from the ACL, the Giants aren't going to want to put him out there like that. But I do think he's going to throw the ball a whole lot better. The line should be improved than it was in 2022. The offensive weapons around him, minus Saquon, obviously, are much better than they were in 22. I mean, we didn't have anybody like Neighbors at all. Wan'Dale Robinson would have been the top receiver. Jalen Hyatt could have been the top receiver. Darius Slayton, obviously, who was the top receiver, is still there. I mean, this is a whole lot better receiving. Even if you want to go to the tight end room at that point, you got a 30-year Bellinger. He should be more experienced, should be better. Theo Johnson, I think, is a nice athletic receiving tight end that could throw a little pop in there. I don't know what to expect of him really, but he's got a potential to throw a little pop into that passing game there. So a lot better weapons around him, that's for damn sure. So while he may not run as much as he did in 2022, he should be a whole lot better of a passer. And those two things, I think, should equal itself out, hopefully, where for those who do get him. I still don't think I'd pick him up as anything more than a backup quarterback, just because I don't have faith he'll stay healthy. But
that's probably your best bet, depending on the size of the league you're in. Because if you're in a 14-man league, you're looking at 20 quarterbacks that people are probably going to draft.
Yeah, no, you're 100%. I mean, you got to look at that always, and you also got to look at is it a keeper league as well? Because it's a keeper league, you definitely don't want to probably get him because we all know we've talked about it before. Again, we talked about the last segment. The Giants are necessarily stuck with him. He's just the best option available right now.
Yeah.
But we don't know what's going to happen long term with him. He get hurt and we get out of the league again if he hurts his neck again. He could be replaced next season in the draft. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on the keeper league you're in. Usually you pick up your top 3 best players. You keep them for the following year.
Oh, see, I used to do a keeper league where it was a franchise league where you kept everybody. And then we had a draft at the end of the year.
Yeah, it depends on the league. That's what I was going to add.
Did 4 years in a row. That was kind of fun. But yeah, we did it just like an NFL draft. The worst record got the first pick.
It's not bad.
Yeah, worked out pretty well actually. But yeah, like I said, he's an interesting option for somebody who might not be thought of, because I think a lot of people aren't going to think of him. He's going to sit there because he's Daniel Jones. He's got his haters. But he's a guy that I think could be a surpriser as a backup who could come in potentially and even beat out whoever you have as your starting lineup typically after a couple weeks if he does as good as some people think he can do. He's a guy that can shock you. So speaking of shocking picks here for fantasy, there's another guy who's listed as a sleeper pick here now for fantasy football, and that's Tyrone Tracy Jr., who I just feel like we should start calling him TTJR. I just feel like that's what it should be. Like, for some reason, it just rings, like, just rolls off the tongue.
TTJR.
TTJR. I don't know what he's got a nickname. I haven't heard a nickname for him yet, but I just feel like TTJR.
Junior.
It just works. We're gonna start doing it. We're gonna start making
TTJR.
that. So it sounds like a cheap American restaurant, like TJF or something like that. But you know, he got a listing there from Pro Football Network as a sleeper pick. They said Tyrone Tracy Jr.'s explosive athleticism, exceptional creativity as a ball carrier, and pass catching upside have me very intrigued at the end of the fantasy drafts. If Tracy can provide a spark to the Giants offense early in the season in a complementary role, it's not that far-fetched to suggest his role could expand exponentially throughout the season. And I think the big thing is, we've talked about in the show before, the fact that he's a converted wide receiver. You got to think he's going to be able to catch the ball. You know, you talked about the PPR leagues in the last segment. This has got to be a guy that you would pick, like they said, towards the very end of the draft. I wouldn't pick him up early. But if you pick him up towards the end of the draft and he ends up being like a third down, running back, you could see this guy get some points in a PPR league. And then, like they said, towards the end of the season, you could see him maybe start splitting carries with Devin Singletary if he's looking good as a runner as well on top of that. Because if you just put him in on passing plays, it's pretty obvious what you're doing with him. You're going to have to mix it up a little bit there here and there.
Yeah, I mean, this guy could go undrafted in any fantasy league and still be a sleeper. So that's not saying anything, too crazy there. So this is a guy that who knows what his plays are going to be the first month of the football. Yeah, I mean, granted, we play Vikings week 1, right? It's not like their defense is that good. He may have a good first game, but you're probably looking at Singletary starting in the backfield over there. Then you go play the Commanders, we dominate. Once again, like, who knows? Their defense is a lot better than the Commanders. Play the Browns, which is a really good defense, and then who knows what you got in Dallas. And then you go play the Seahawks. Then you finally go play the Bengals in week 5. So you probably look at week 5, buys start coming in. Who do you pick up? Pick up Turbo. TTJR.
No, not Turbo. Turbo Miller.
No, sorry.
I went with the wrong Turbo.
So, yeah, it's always
TTJR.
TTJR.
But yeah, again, I think he's that kind of guy. You pick him up towards the very end potentially. Again, if you're in a deep league, like if you got a bunch of teams, you might have to pick up some guys that you're hoping could give you something, and he's in that category. If you're in a league where it's only a few teams, you might be looking at him as a waiver wire guy each week to see what happens. So
if you're in 10-man league, this is a waiver wire guy. 100%.
Definitely a guy that could provide something this season on a team that, let's be honest here, doesn't have a lot of options at running back. You look at Devin Singletary, who's a stud. Obviously, he's kind of that B-tier running back in this league. Then you got Eric Gray, who we all know my thoughts on him. I hate him. I shouldn't say it. I hate him. I hate his playing style. I don't like him as a player. I don't like. I'm glad we didn't re-sign Matt Breida. I think he was kind of shown to be the end of his career last year, the way he played. So you go to Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Turbo Miller as your guys at that point. Could be their backups, and I don't think either one of them is the guy that you would sit there and say he's definitely the guy. And if Tracy takes that role on, like I said, in the PPR league especially, he could definitely be putting up some points.
Yeah, 100%.
All righty. Let's talk about a little Hard Knocks here, because
it's a hard knock life
for us.
Especially
tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern on HBO and Max.
Yeah. It's a hard knock life for MetLife.
By the way, is it just me or is the background getting cooler and cooler looking behind me as the sun starts going down?
I'm telling you, that green background you got going on is very, very nice.
If the camera keeps going in out of focus, I'm using the backup camera here. That's what happens when I travel, get all the backup stuff here. But yeah, so on Hard Knocks, the showrunners of Hard Knocks were on the Locked On Giants program with Pat Traina, and it was a nice episode there. Not that her stuff's never not good. She's pretty good overall. She's pretty honest usually on what's going on with the Giants there. But you got the two showrunners were on Paul Camerata. I may be mispronouncing the name, to be honest with you there, and Emily Cameron, who luckily has an easy name. So Paul was the one with basically the major quotes though that were given. So first one is, there was like a momentum undertaking. That was like a monumental undertaking, and they certainly helped us whittle out what seemed to be the big stories. And that's talking about the editing process and deciding what to put on the show and what not to. So, they made it seem like the Giants helped them and kind of worded it as a friendly thing. But let's really look at that. They certainly helped us whittle out what seemed to be the big stories. That tells you right there. The Giants helped them editing the whole program. We've said it before. I know that people are like, oh, it's just for competitive reasons. You can have that for a very broad thing. That's not to say that other Hard Knocks weren't that way. I'm not saying that Hard Knocks gave Giants extra editorial processing that other teams didn't have. But that's what it is. And then they said, he goes on to say, it's always been about competitive balance and protecting the integrity of a team, not disclosing almost inadvertently to our not understanding of it. It's always critical when we do these shows, and the Giants were no different, where we establish that trust is that we're gonna cut the show, we're gonna tell the story, but you're gonna have a chance to look at it and approve the content. So yeah, the Giants point blank had the ability to edit the show. Those comments legit put it to rest. Yeah. So for those people that keep on saying this is, it's just for competitive reasons only, they can only do this, that. No, they had the full abilities to edit this whole show, guys. That's what we've been saying since day one, because competitive is such a broad term. So he basically just said it there. Now, everyone, when they hear, especially as football fans, they think competitive is going on the field playing other teams. Competitive also means hiring players, drafting players, picking up players, free agents, coaching, evaluations. Because if players hear this toxic, if the players hear what kind of coffee like, they're never going to show up. You like mayo in there? Gross. No, but like it's competitive. They know I drive a Hyundai.
Yeah. No, but if they go in and they see there's a toxic environment, like, who wants to go play in that? Who wants to go work in a toxic environment?
Well, in all fairness, they just have to look at our record the last 10 years to know the environment's a little toxic.
Well, that's besides the point.
So, as Deb says, I thought my max had run out, but signed in and was able to watch Hard Knocks. Yay. Still fun to watch. I like the preseason Hard Knocks better than training camp shows. Listen, I like it a lot. I'm not knocking it in that regards. I just think people need to recognize what it is and recognize that they're showing you what they want you to see.
Exactly.
So, like,
just like all reality TV shows,
these great things, these great insights. Like, no, the Giants are force feeding us what they want us to know. So, some of this, and this is a lot like when you see an interview and you see things. So, like we talked about it before. You got to read between some of the lines of what's going on there. They obviously had respect for certain players when they looked at the combine interviews, and certainly didn't have respect for others.
Correct.
So, as Chris says, Hard Knocks, in my opinion, too scripted, not diving deep into the dirty, grimy issues within the organization. And they're not going to. There's no way they're going to let the Giants look bad in this whole thing, because if they did, let's be honest, no NFL team would ever sign up for it.
Exactly.
Joe Shane, though, to be clear, is getting a lot of crud from a lot of people for how he's treating the whole Saquon scenario. And I don't think it's 100% wrong, because some of it, what he said, is kind of cold and businesslike and heartless, whereas he's not wrong what he said. It's wrong on how it comes out that he said it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think
Like,
he's
you don't
getting
got to
too
kick
much.
a guy. He's already gone. He's already gone. Saquon's already gone. You don't have to put comments in
Yeah.
like, oh, 27 years old. Running backs are bad. Well, we get it. You didn't want him.
Yeah, I don't think it was that cold about it, but yeah, I know what
I
you're
mean,
saying.
I would, if it was one comment, I would agree with you. It's just too many comments for me to say it didn't come off as cold. You
Yeah,
know?
but I mean, once again, we're watching an edited version of it. Like he may have just said it once, one person, explain, because when you come into the editing process, right, you don't know what the person prior says. You keep your focus on what Shane's saying. So when he's talking to one person and a month later he's talking to another person, and like, hey, why don't you re-sign Saquon? What's going on? Are you re-signing Saquon? And he's going to say the same thing he said to the first person. So it's
But
not
they
like
don't have to put it in the show then. It's already been said.
you're right. You don't. But also, once again, the focus is not on people asking. They have to follow up and fill dead air. And
I get it. I'm just saying. I feel like he's kind of been like a beaten horse in this whole thing. Now, keep in mind, we might find out later on that he wronged the Giants in some way, and maybe that's why. So I'm not saying he's necessarily the villain of this whole thing. I just think people are looking at it going, hold on a minute. You've already said he's old and you don't want him. Like, let it go. And I get that side of it. I really do.
yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong either. I get it too.
Especially for a guy that's been with them for years and, gave him a lot while he was there. So, all right. Let's get into somebody they mentioned Hard Knocks, though. And that's Brian Burns. Brian Burns has been ranked as a top 10 pass rusher in the NFL. That's by ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. And I just have one question for Jeremy Fowler. What are you smoking, dude?
Can you pass him?
Seriously. And again, I'm not a hater of the Brian Burns selection of the move of bringing him in. I've said it before. I think we overpaid for him. But he's not a top 10 pass rusher in the NFL, guys. That's utterly ridiculous,
I mean,
Absolutely
do I
ridiculous.
hope he is? And will he be? Yeah, I do. But that's also you're playing for the worst team in the NFL.
Yes. And
You're the
hoping that
only
changes
bright
now.
spot there. You could be ranked 18, 20, 22 at that position and still be the bright star of that NFL organization because
Shine bright
everyone
like
else
a
was to do.
diamond.
Shine bright like some quartz.
So here's the exact quote from Jeremy Fowler on this. He said, Burns looked poised to crack the top 5 but lost momentum, needing tiebreakers to take the 10th spot. The consistent top 10 performer has won double-digit sack seasons since 2019, and his last year in Carolina wasn't stellar, leading to a trade to New York. To be sure, a contentious contract standoff could have affected his play, and the Panthers rarely held leads, diminishing the third down rush opportunities. Burns is the only player in the top 10 without a single top 5 vote. And then this is an NFL coordinator talking about him that they quoted that stayed anonymous. He said, he has everything you want in the position and will always be productive. The only thing he lacks is that elite power. I think it lacks production to call him a top 10. I mean, I'd say maybe top 15. You want to go there? Like that's maybe, I'd have to look at the list and, I wouldn't want to say that without actually diving into each pass rusher and deciding who I want to put in there. But top 10, that sounds a little...
Sounds aggressive.
That sounds a little rough there. That sounds a little bit like we're trying to force it there. And I think a lot of it is, again, he's got that reputation. And I think that reputation came from the fact he was highly touted in college. He's looked very good on a very bad team. And I think people look at him as potential. We're paying this man on potential. We're giving him a top 10 status now through ESPN as potential. This is an important year for him. Like, seriously, guys, he's got to live up to that potential. Well, this is going to look like a really bad contract really quickly. And I don't think it's going to necessarily. I'm 50-50 on it. But something's got to give this year, guys. He's going to be on a team with Dexter Lawrence. He's going to be a team with Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, he's got people around him. And he's going to be on, a team that we're hoping is more competitive than the Panthers were last year. That's not saying much. So it gives him more opportunities. He's going to be with a defensive coordinator that's going to let him pin his ears back and go get the goddamn quarterback. Like, he's got every opportunity to do what he needs to do. Correct. And if he doesn't do it, it's on him. So,
Or he was just too slow and got beat out.
Or what?
Or he's just too slow and got beat out.
Yeah. Well, his speed's never the problem. It's his strength that's the problem. He's like, and it's funny. He's with Kayvon. They both have the same issue. They're both extremely fast and depend on their speed. So sometimes that can bite you in the butt when you're going against somebody who's also pretty fast, As Chris says, I like the signing of Spider-Man. Dex Superman. What Marvel characters are next? Well, Superman's DC, Chris. Come on.
I was about to say, wait a
Come
minute.
on. You can call Jalen Hyatt the Flash and go a little more DC at that point there, since he's so fast. Think fast, be fast.
So fast.
Think fast, be fast.
Chad Powers?
Chad Powers himself. There he goes. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the best move we did this offseason here. So PFF did a list of the best move each team did this offseason. And this one I definitely agree with, guys. The Giants' best move this offseason? The offensive line. The obvious glaring hole. The obvious need that the team had to fix at that point. It's been kind of the thorn in our side for many, many years now, as Rob has a cartoon version of me on the screen for some reason. That's me.
I was just too sexy. They had to get rid of me.
Sexy Dexy. Here's PFF what they said. They said, emphasizing the offensive line, this is more of a best strategy. While the Giants didn't add a massive name in free agency along their offensive line, they brought in Jermaine Illuminor, John Runyon, Aaron Stinney, and Austin Schlottman. The sum of those four signals new life and some needed flexibility to improve the unit from 2023 after the Giants fielded the lowest graded offensive line in the league, 47.2. And 100% that right. Like, we took the biggest weakness we had. We didn't sign anyone major. Like, I'm not trying to say we signed like a next like Pro Bowl guy, an All-Pro guy. We already had that guy. Andrew Thomas is that guy. What we didn't have is just some solid people to put across this line. Jermaine Illuminor, solid guy. John Runyon, bad run blocker, but an amazing pass blocker. Aaron Stinney, the reverse. Austin Schlottman has stepped in multiple times and done well. We've got guys who are legitimate NFL players now. Whereas before we were getting people off the couch. That's a change. That's a change. So, I think it's a good mix we got. I think it's good considering the cap space we had, considering the available talent out there. Because it wasn't like there was a ton of top-tier talent out there, guys. Especially ones that were sitting around that were going to be necessarily wanting to come to us, because top talent tends to want to go to top teams and get top Super Bowl rings.
That's it. Go for that ring.
That's what a lot of these guys are. So, instead
if top free agent, put a ring on it. If you're a top free agent, put a ring on it. Put your hands up. What?
But we ended up, getting instead a bunch of mid-tier players who were an improvement over what we had. I mean, we did talk before. Austin Schlottman would have been, I think, the third best PFF grade that we had. Jermaine Illuminor would have been the second best PFF grade we had at the offensive line. And Aaron Stinney would have beaten out like half the guys we had on the line last year. So we brought in guys who were an improvement. And of course, we can't not mention the biggest move we got, getting Priscillo as the offensive line coach, which, let's be honest, I think me or Rob would be an improvement over Bobby Johnson last year. Like that guy's just, glad to see him in DC. Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau getting some sacks next year at DC. But yeah, good, a good move overall by fixing the offensive line, and not necessarily fixing it to make it elite, but at least the moves to make it an average offensive line in this league, guys. An average offensive line is something I will take day and night now, considering
over last
how bad our line has been the last few years there. So,
the past 10 years, yeah.
Yes. Now let's talk about a guy who had a bit of a fall from grace last year. And that's our head coach, Brian Daboll. And talk about a guy who went from considered one of the best coaches in the NFL to a guy that a lot of people aren't so sure about anymore. There's talk about, is he fake? Will he make it past this year? There's a lot of talk about that, guys. I'm not saying it. Let's be very clear. Rob's not saying it.
Nope.
But that conversation is out there. So PFF did a ranking of their top head coaches in this league. Now you think the guy won, head coach of the year, prior year, in his very first year. He had a team that had tons of injuries that was still fighting till the very end. Let's be very frank in this. This team was fighting nonstop at the end of the season last year, guys. This was not a team that gave up when most would have. This is not a team that stopped playing hard and was worried about getting injured and what their next contract to be. This team was fighting their tail off.
They won their last game against a team that, granted it's the Eagles, but
granted the Eagles have lost to everybody.
Yeah,
but they were still playing hard. Their second half was better than the first half. If you go season-wise, it was better. They lost a lot of close games there, and this team kept fighting. But here's our write-up they gave him. Again, ranked him 21, obviously out of 32. They said a tough nut to crack after two widely different seasons to open his Big Blue tenure. Dable was a rightful coach of the year in 2022, rejuvenating Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley en route to a surprise playoff run, only to slip as both a situational play caller and sideline maestro in 2023. Once again, the onus will be on him, maximizing Jones and still rebuilding offense in the tough NFC East. Guys, I feel like people are seeming to think he did a bad job last year.
Yeah, we'll give that.
I'd love to see what coach could deal with the injuries he had last year and succeed. Call me a Dable apologist, but
you start quarterbacks out. Oh, the stud. Your
back
running back.
Out.
Yeah. Your running back, who is the best player on the team, missed games with missing those quarterbacks.
You're signing guys off the streets to play guard, and then within that same game, they have to move to left tackle.
Yeah,
like you got a defensive coordinator who's basically trying to undermine every single thing you're saying and doing, and trying to
acts like he's in high school.
Mutiny the locker room. And he doesn't lose the locker room. He doesn't. That locker room was still fighting for him the entire time. I'm sorry, that's way off base. I'm not sitting there saying he's a top 5 coach. Like, I'm not sitting there saying that.
No.
I do think though that he's a lot better than 21, because that puts him below average.
I would give him a top 15. It's fair to say.
I would even say top 10. That team was fighting their freaking butts off for him.
They were. You
tell me how many coaches towards the end of the season had their team fighting their tail off still? Not a lot.
Tony Pierce.
What do you say? Antonio Pierce? Again, we talked about him before. Again, I don't want to get in too much individuals either, but Antonio Pierce followed Josh McCown, Josh McDaniel, sorry. Wrong Mick. Who is okay. It's okay. I'm all the nationalities. But who was hated and a complete jerk. Antonio Pierce, you're going to find out what he really is this season.
You just said name me a person. I just didn't. Just saying.
No, what I'm saying, like, there's not that many people that could do that. There's not.
No.
Look what. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do this because Giant fans love this. Look what happened to Nick Sirianni. Did he rally that team? Did he keep that team going? Did they keep playing hard for him? Or did they bomb the second half? Bomb the playoff game they were in? They got him out of the playing, so can't say bomb, bombardier.
Yeah.
But that's where we're at.
There was napalm all over Philly.
Did Dallas continue to play hard the second half against the Packers?
Ooh.
Just saying, this team kept playing.
They were unpacked by the Packers, or they were packed up by the Packers.
This team kept playing. Give them a little credit here. So, but it's funny because they're talking about next year and what's going to happen with Dable. We got people talking already about the draft again. We already talked about a mock draft last week here. They got 2 more for you guys today. So, crazy. So, first up, Bleacher Report. Bleacher Report does a mock draft. And it's a little shocking here who we take. Because I think this one, I'm calling it a shocking move because it is a shocking move. You get people talking quarterback with everything going on as far as, Daniel Jones and where we're going to keep him next year and all that stuff. It's valid talk I get. I understand it. Even though I don't like it when the season's still going on like this, but, or not even started, I should say even. But yet they got us going with Travis Hunter. So Travis Hunter plays for Colorado for Deion Sanders there. He plays the wide receiver and corner position. They have him here taking as a corner. But guys, here's the problem. Who was our last 2 picks? A corner and a wide receiver.
Yep.
Why would we pick again at one of those 2 positions? That means one of these 2 failed. That's what that means. And we're giving up on them that quickly. That's not a good outlook for the Giants. I can't have that kind of outlook. And maybe it's because I'm a Giants fan. But it's also I feel like that's bad business to give up after 2 years on a corner and 1 year after wide receiver, who by all accounts is going to be a stud, by the way. So anyway, this is what the write-up was. By the way, they had us drafting at 7 overall. I don't like that either. That's way too. That's not cool. That's not cool.
So we get another 6 wins.
Yeah, apparently. So anyway, they say in this instance, Travis Hunter is still projected as a cornerback. Maybe that's somewhat of an outdated way of thinking, considering how valuable wide receivers have become. But his skill set currently translates best to the defensive backfield, where he can join last year's first-round selection Deonte Banks. Hunter can still be used in certain specific packages on the offensive side of the ball. He's a legitimate playmaker. So they're calling him basically the wish version of Deion Sanders.
It's like Timu now, man. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Wish is kind of outdated.
But I'm saying that's what they're basically saying, because you can't expect him to be next Deion Sanders. That's a little ridiculous.
No.
So, but why would you think we need a second top 10, second first round selection at corner? We just drafted one. You don't draft the same position over and over again. That's like doing the same thing to the secondary we did with the offensive line. It's not a good practice.
Yeah, let's not do that, guys.
You don't win that way. So, that's just, I'm a little shocked by that. And I'm also a little shocked to think that Travis Hunter would go that high. Maybe I'm just not as, high on him as other people are, but I think that's a little bit too high. I would have him personally as a mid to late first round pick currently. But, we still got the whole year to play. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they'll be wrong. Who knows? Way too early. But I just find it weird that they're not picking a position like quarterback that everybody else is. Why go right to corner?
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I understand the quarterback thing. I really do. Speaking of quarterbacks, that's the other one we got here. Alan Trockman of Yardbarker has us also going for a quarterback as well. And they got us going for Quinn Ewers of the Texas Longhorns here. So they have us selecting 5th overall. So at least the last mock draft had a 7th overall. I guess they liked us better. 5th overall. We had a top 5 pick again. This was the write-up he said. He said, the Giants bypassed the opportunity to replace Daniel Jones in the draft this year, but another poor season from the former first-round pick could leave them no choice. Ewers took a huge step forward last season as he continued to hold off Arch Manning in the Texas offense, completing 69% of his passes for nearly 3,500 yards in 12 games. So, in this scenario, they let us have us picking Quinn Ewers over Carson Beck of Georgia, who's considered by a lot of people could be the quarterback of this draft coming up next year. Again, time will tell. This could all change within a couple months, obviously. But Quinn Ewers is an interesting guy. Again, like they said, he's been holding off Arch Manning so far, so that gets him a little hype right there. But this is the year that if he succeeds, this kid's going to get some attention, because look at the list of who he lost this past year in the draft. And again, every team loses players in the draft. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but he lost Mitchell and Worthy's 2 top receivers. He lost Jordan Whittington as well, who is his 3rd best receiver. He lost Jatavian Sanders, his tight end, and Jonathan Brooks, his running back. So, yeah, he lost basically every weapon he used last year. You expect to hold on to 1 or 2. You think somebody's going to hold on. And these guys all went early on in the draft. Mitchell and Worthy were first-round talents there. Whittington not as much. Sanders, one of the top tight ends in the draft. Brooks, we talked about, in our opinion, was the best running back in this draft. It wasn't for the injury. He probably would have been the first one taken. So you got a lot of talents, guys leaving. So if Ewers still looks really good, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's him. We're going to find out there. But
maybe he's made it.
He's an interesting one. I really think Ewers and and Beck are the two that I'm going to be keeping an eye on early on this season, and then we'll see what happens. I mean, let's be honest, Jaden Daniels wasn't on our radar this time of last year.
Touche.
We barely knew who he was. Things do happen, things do change, and again, Daniel Jones could look better this year, and the Giants say, okay, let's hold on to him again. Let's see what happens. You never know. That's the beauty of the football seasons here. You never know what's going to happen there. So, for example, you never know what's going to happen. Your third-string quarterback could all of a sudden smoke crack and say crazy things, which is exactly what happened this week. Minus the smoking crack part, okay? I don't want to.
I was say, was he found with the fluorescent light bulb?
Something about being stuck in a cave somewhere with some mushrooms or something. But yeah, Tommy DeVito had an interview this week, and he was asked about quarterbacks, which, obviously he's a quarterback. They're going to ask him about other quarterbacks. This is what he said. He said, Aaron Rodgers is my GOAT. Aaron Rodgers is special. He's a magician. What? That's definitely I'm smoking something with Aaron Rodgers kind of talk there.
I mean, I know you loathe Aaron Rodgers.
Listen, I loathe him as a person. I respect him as a player, and I can separate the two.
He's in some top talent, but the key words is his GOAT. So Aaron Rodgers, it's his GOAT.
But you can't. He played in the same generation of the guy who is the GOAT.
Correct.
When you're not the best of your generation, you can't sit there and say you're the best to ever play the game.
So the only kickback I'm going to give to you on this, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying.
Go for the kickback. It's okay.
This is the only kickback.
Agreed.
Is Brady is going to go down as the best for a very, very, very long time. Why is that? Because he's got more rings than Thanos, which makes a very easy case. Brady's one of the best IQ football players.
Though, Thanos had a glove, not rings. It was one.
Well, there were rings in the comics.
He had stones.
Sure. James, whatever.
No one reads comics. We wait for the movie. It's like a book now.
Pretty much. But he's got more gems. He's got more whatever you want to call them, stones.
Infinity
than Thanos.
Stones. Are you saying Aaron Rodgers getting injured is inevitable? What?
Yes. He will tear an ACL.
Here's my thing, though.
But
let
me finish the thought. Before you intervene.
Go for it.
So he gets in there. Brady is by far the best at being, and I don't want to mean this in a negative way. He's the best game manager, hype man, does what it takes to win the ball game, which makes him the GOAT because he knows how to win ball games. But he also will go out there, throw you 130 yards a game or 430 yards a game. He knows how to do both. And as a kid, when Aaron Rodgers was very flashy, DeVito's coming up. And what is Aaron Rodgers doing that's different from Tom Brady? Well, Aaron Rodgers is more of your gunslinger.
Sitting at home in February?
Not then. Not then. He was still young. I mean, that's when Aaron Rodgers was still young, still going to those camps. That's more recent times that he became a douche nozzle like that.
No, but, I mean, like not winning the Super Bowl. He won one Super Bowl. And that's why I can't, like I said, but, I look at the records, the longevity, the Super Bowls, and
but you keep looking at the Super Bowls. We talked about this again. So the thing is, like, he was more like Rodgers is more of a gunslinger. He's more of a throw it up. He's like Hail Mary kind of guy. So like as a quarterback, a young quarterback, what do you want to do? You don't want to be the game manager. You want to sit there and throw that Hail Mary and get that game winning.
But that doesn't make you the greatest of all time. I get what you're saying. Why a kid would look up to Aaron Rodgers more than Tom Brady because of the play style. I don't dispute that part of it. What I'm saying is this is a grown man now. Granted, he's still a kid in our eyes because he's young.
I was about to say
1 year.
He's half your age.
He's over the age of 18. He's supposed to make adult decisions. He's legally able to drink. Like, and here he is calling a guy who, let's be honest, his teammates have not liked him in the past. They've talked tons of trash about him. Some of them have left, go elsewhere for less money. Devontae Adams, who I know there's a rumor of him going back to the Jets, but that's what happened. He took less money to leave Aaron Rodgers, basically. And then you got, guys like crazy, like him starting trouble with Mike McCarthy, him starting trouble left and right in Green Bay, him wanting control over everything. And then there's Tom Brady, who look at took pay cuts. Took pay cuts. Look at the roast they had on him. Like, everybody loves this guy that ever played with him. We talk about things that I don't like about him in the past. I've had some issues with some of the stuff he's done. But the people that know him well talk very nicely of him. Talk very highly of the guy. They go to bat for him any day that they need to. That says a lot in who he is as a person. Whereas Rodgers doesn't have that. Rodgers is stuck in a cave with some shroom grower, discussing what to play another year. He's much more of the Brett Favre than the Joe Montana. Yes. He's much more the Tony Romo than he is the Tom Brady. Like, he's not. I don't even think I put Aaron Rodgers in my top 5
of goats of generation. That's generation, or
no? I'm saying overall, and I hate overall because it's so hard to compare different generations and such.
Well, I'm saying if you're talking about this generation,
I would put Tom Brady over him. I would put Joe Montana in front of him. I would put Y.A. Tittle, the former Giant, in front of him because he's probably one of the most overlooked guys ever to play this game. I would even put Dan Marino in front of him. Dan Marino is probably one of the most underrated players. I would put I'd put Peyton Manning ahead of him. I would put John Elway ahead of him.
Yeah, but
that's not. He's a legit NFL Hall of Fame player. Okay, I'm not trying to say he's bad, but all
right. So going back to the generation of DeVito, not you. You gotta take Elway out, and you gotta take Marino out. He was too young to watch him.
Deb just says DeVito is entitled to his opinion, and his stock just went down in my mind with that statement. Exactly. Yeah,
you're not wrong.
Listen, what's one of the most important things in a young quarterback? Decision-making abilities. That was a bad decision, DeVito.
Yes. Listen.
That shows poor decision-making abilities and poor analysis.
He is no better than Big Ben.
Who? Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
No, Aaron Rodgers is definitely better than Big Ben.
How many rings is? How many times?
It's not just the rings; it's how he plays.
Oh, so we talked about I'm just saying.
I put Dan Marino in that list ahead of him, but Dan Marino doesn't have a single ring. He has 0.
Yeah, but he went how many times? That's what I was about to get at.
He went once.
Touche.
And lost. Dan Marino was just clearly the best quarterback of his generation. He was doing numbers that would work today, back in the 80s.
Correct.
By the way, Drew Brees, probably a better quarterback as well.
Yeah.
And again, I'm having to struggle to come up with names. It just says that I do have respect for the way Aaron Rodgers plays. Like, I do. But GOAT? No, he's not in the conversation. He's not in that conversation. I'm sorry. That's just... And it's his own personality flaws that probably put him there, to be honest. It's not just throwing the rock around. It's being a leader. It's, getting building the team together, the things that he just doesn't do. So I can't put him there. I can't. It's crazy. It's a little crazy. So let's talk about some of the greatest currently playing.
Ooh.
Because we got 2 Giants that were named to the top 100 NFL players list. So literally they ranked 100 players. We had 2. For the record, 32 teams, we should have 3 on average, if not 4. We only had 2. Not very good for us. But we can still congratulate the 2 that made it. And the 2 that made it are the ones you'd expect. And that's Dexter Lawrence, who, of course, has to be there, and Brian Burns. I will say this, and I love to know where the list is, but Andrew Thomas should have been on this list. I would actually put him ahead of Brian Burns. No disrespect to Burns.
Yep.
I would put him ahead of Brian Burns. I think he's the second best player in this team. I think Burns is probably number 3. But here's what they said overall. Dexter Lawrence, first off, ranked 19. I thought that was a good high number.
Very respectful.
I think that's a respectful number because you got to think that a lot of the top 19, for the most part, are going to be quarterbacks and guys like that. Now, I will say this. ESPN put it behind a paywall to get the whole list, so I don't know the whole list. Anybody who wants to let us know in the comments section and copy and paste the list, feel free. We won't complain.
Please.
But this is the write-up they said about Dexter Lawrence. So there's no other NFL player quite like Dexter Lawrence. He's one of the league's best pass rushers, despite standing 6'4", 340 pounds. While most defensive tackles his size merely take up space, Lawrence finished 7th among interior defenders with 65 pressures in 2023. Lawrence managed that production despite playing most of his snaps in the A-gap, aligned head up over the center, where he was regularly double-teamed at a 71% rate. He already owns the top 2 QB hit seasons, 28 and 22 and 21 and 23 amongst players weighing at least 340 pounds. By the way, that's a stat I did not know they even kept, but yeah. So yeah, that's a good write-up on him. And then he got Brian Burns, ranked number 85. They said the New York Giants added Brian Burns this offseason, giving up a package centered around a second-round draft pick to acquire the pass rusher from the Carolina Panthers. An athletic marvel, Burns was incredibly consistent for the Panthers, posting at least 8 sacks and 18 QB hits in 4 straight years. Big Blue will blitz less often under new defensive coordinator Shane Bowen, so they need Burns to help and come get after opposing quarterbacks. I thought that was kind of interesting. They said that blitz less. Like, first off, again, PFN, Pro Football Network, is who did this list. I said ESPN before by accident. PFN did. Dallas Robinson is the name of the guy who wrote this. But it's a little crazy the way they put this. So they're going to blitz less. For those guys who don't realize what I mean by that, Wink Martindale was very predicated based on blitzing often and putting edge guys into coverage. There's a reason edge rushers did not typically reach double-digit sacks with Wink Martindale. In fact, Kayvon Thibodeau was the only guy to get, I think he's got the record, actually. One of the only guys to ever get 10 sacks at that point with Wink Martindale. They're going to blitz more often with the edge rushers than they did in the past. You know, I think it's a little crazy to sit there and suggest that that Kayvon needs help because blitzing less often. No, the edge rushers are going to blitz. They're going to be edge rushers.
Yeah,
they were edge rushers / corner rushers.
For real.
You know, less safeties, left corners, left slot corners going out. This is a different defense, guys. This is going to help Kayvon and it's going to help Brian Burns. I really think that. And by extension, it's going to help Dexter Lawrence because he's going to have closer help. Not going to be safeties coming down to help. Yeah. It's going to be edge rushers doing what they're supposed to do. Rush the edge. It's almost like what they do is in the name or something. It's crazy. It's really crazy.
It's nuts.
So, but yeah, like I said, I do think Andrew Thomas deserved this list. I think, Bobby Okereke, while it wasn't necessarily on this list, should have been a guy probably in the top 110, 115 kind of guy.
Yeah, he right there teetering that line.
But Andrew Thomas should have been here. You got one of the best left tackles in all of football that plays on a line that just, let's be honest, sucks.
I mean, we talked about it earlier.
He's literally played next to a pile of poop in a uniform for how long? Like, he's had guys coming off the streets to help him out. He's had guys that just injured left and right coming next to help him.
He played next to that Triceratops in the first Jurassic Park movie. That was just laying there like poison.
with a doctor's glove shoved up his butt. Like,
yeah. And Grant just gonna
it's like a ride for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, Andrew Thomas should have been on this list, but yeah, other two I got no problem with. Like I said, I like Brian Burns. I think he's a top 100 guy. I just don't think he's a top 10 pass rusher like we talked about earlier in the show, but he's definitely a top 100 guy. Bobby Okereke, again, probably should have been close to this list if he didn't make it. I would have loved to see the whole thing and see what they said. But unfortunately, they're not going to give you past the 100 to know where Bobby Okereke would have landed. But I'd be kind of curious. He's got to be close. He's got to be close. All right, guys, let's get into the preview for Hard Knocks for next week. As soon as we're done paying the bills, which I think I saw a private chat pop up, and of course there it is, saying Bills, but he misspelled it. Rob reminding me to pay the bills.
Enjoying the show? Looking for more goofball action? Consider a membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Memberships start at just $5 and give you additional goofball access. One-time support payments also available starting at just $3. buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.
Alrighty, guys. So let's get talking about tomorrow night.
Ooh.
Episode 3 of the Hard Knocks off-season show. And they left a little bit of a cliffhanger, obviously, last time with Saquon Barkley talk, which we talked about before. We're getting a little tired of Saquon Barkley talk, to be honest.
Oh, we're going to have another few episodes of that.
Yeah, but here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping this is the end. I really am hoping this is the end. Like, let's just end the Saquon saga on the show because we're all getting bored of it. Like, let's find out. And they kind of alluded to the fact they probably are going to with the part they had after the credits there, talking about the money part and all. So, I think they're going to probably end that. But I'm really hoping that's what's going to happen. I'm kind of curious to see. I feel like this episode tomorrow is going to shape the legacy of Saquon Barkley with the New York Giants big time. Because if he really left us for $1 million a year or less, yeah, that's not going to look good. And I understand $1 million is a lot of money, but it's not that much considering what he's already made.
Yeah.
So it's not the, oh my God, I have to go to these guys because they only offered me $1 million. He's offered me $2 million. It's more like we offer 12, they offer 13. Like he's rich either way. Stop.
Correct.
Stop. That just says, I didn't want to be a Giant my whole life. That's what it says to me. And if that's what it is, like I said, Giant fans are going to react. We are nothing if not opinionated. We are. To
say the least. I mean, so, let's break it down to I guess average American households, right? If you're making $60,000 a year and you get a job offer at 65, but you're going to have to lose out on endorsements, commissions, lose out on other things, possibility to go make $65,000 as your base salary. Like, was it worth the move? You might have to commute more. Really is it worth leaving your job for $5,000 a year? Yeah,
I mean, well, other things may be involved, and that's where I think probably is where we're actually at. But money-wise, it's going to be there, and he's not going to look good. I think, guys, he's really not going to look good. But what I'm really hoping to talk about more is the free agents. I want to hear, why did we sign the people we did sign? I want to hear them talking about Jermaine Illuminor. I want to hear them talking about John Runyon Jr. I want to hear them talking about, when they re-sign Isaiah Simmons, which that probably won't happen until next episode, considering how we signed him. But like what they could plan on doing with them a little more. They kind of alluded in the first episode, but I want to hear about those things. I want to hear about who else did they consider signing that they couldn't get. Was there any discussions they had that were close to signing somebody else that maybe we don't know about? Like that'd be interesting to hear about as well. That kind of stuff, the stuff that we don't already know. I don't want to repeat the same news we already know. I want new stuff, and I don't think they're going to get again. Giants, I still say it. I'll say it again. Giants control the narrative. They're not going to give us anything they don't want to give us. But maybe there's some information we don't have currently. Like maybe they got talking to a different running back before Singletary at some point. They already kind of alluded to the fact that they were looking at multiple running backs in the first episode. Maybe they're looking at getting a top tier offensive lineman before they decide to sign multiple mid tier ones. Like there's other things they could have been doing at this point. I want to hear about how did the conversations go with Xavier McKinney? Before he went off to the Packers there, because we already know that McKinney gave him a chance to match it. That's been known since the get-go. I want to know, any additional coverage they have on draft visits, not just the combine, but, we had players that they brought in for interviews, had out to dinners and stuff like that. I want to hear more about that kind of stuff. I want to hear more about the Brian Burns trade. I want to hear more about how that all went down. It's gonna be interesting couple episodes here, as John says. Where am I? Wife put you in a hotel. No, I'm at.
He didn't ask where he was. He asked where you were, Drew. Yeah. The comment says, "Where are you, Drew?" Not where are I.
You know what I mean. But yeah, John, you missed the beginning of the show, obviously. I'm at the lake house. But yeah. Restart the show afterwards, John. You'll find out where I'm at. Suspense, dun dun dun. Get the extra.
Don't forget to hit the like button.
Yes. As they still in the comments section. Where am I? I'm in Georgia.
Where are you?
Georgia. But yeah. So like I said, it's gonna be a fun episode. I think coming up. Though. I really do. I think we're gonna get into the finding a little more of how the processes are done, and I think that's the more interesting parts of what's going to be coming down. Kind of like when they had the meeting before the press conference with Joe Shane. That's the kind of stuff you don't ever get to see in the NFL world, and that's the stuff that I want to see. I want to see more behind the scenes stuff like that. So
yeah, let's get a little juicy. Ooh.
Yeah, yes, a little juiciness. So, alrighty, guys. Well, that's going to call it a show for the night here. We'll be back again Wednesday doing our post Hard Knock review show there. I will be back in town for that there because I'm coming back Wednesday. I'll be driving back up again, so I'll be back in my usual goofball lair.
His dungeon.
My closet basically that I podcast in. So we will see you guys again Wednesday there. He says, "Say what you want, just got here, bastards," John says. Well, that's what happens when you're
shiesty bastards.
Because, as always, the show starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter/X, except for today, because apparently to start buying Twitter to go on live, and we will start doing that soon. And, of course, as always, Twitch. Twitch, can't forget Twitch. And
Drew's LinkedIn page.
Rob's favorite, yes, my LinkedIn page. And as always, we're available the next day on all the audio podcast platforms. That's, of course, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the big ones there. If you haven't already, hit that like, hit that subscribe. Do tell a friend, too. That's part of how we definitely spread the word there. So I appreciate you guys all for watching. And as always, Giant fans, go G-Man! Go G-Man!
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.
Please,